Hey guys, Ben and Ben here from Session Media, and today we're going to be talking about the evolution of the nofollow tag. Now, for those of you who don't and aren't that familiar with what nofollow tags are, when you're ranking a site, you get these things called hyperlinks back to your website from third-party publications or blogs or media outlets or whatever they are, and then a follow link is when someone passes the authority from their site to yours, and Google takes note of it and helps your site rank higher in search engines because it's one of the ranking factors. A no-follow tag is when Google doesn't take that much notice of it and it doesn't really pass the authority from the linker's site to the receiver's site. No-follow doesn't pass page rank, so it doesn't pass any of the benefits from the authority of the user's site, whereas a do-follow link does. So do-follow helps you rank, no-follow doesn't help you rank. And in the past and in its current state, there's only two options. It's either going to be a follow link, which is the absence of a no-follow tag, or a no-follow link, which means, obviously it's not going to pass that authority. Google have recently come out with a statement that they are introducing two new types of links. I don't know, Ben, if you want to cover those links.
Yeah, so the rel equals sponsorship and the rel equals UGC.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially it kind of gives a little bit more context around the link in question. So they suggest that the rel equals sponsorship is used across advertisements.
Mm-hmm.
If there's been any, they use the word compensation to have links placed in various blogs or articles. The UGC, I think actually, it sort of looks like an attribute that was used when nofollow was originally introduced. So things such as forum comments or forum spam. And we have a short history lesson back in 2005 when nofollow was first rolled out. This was the sole reason for a nofollow tag. Content wasn't as big, obviously, as it is now. And the nofollow tag was implemented to stop bloggers essentially leaving comments on other blogs and, purely for the purpose of getting the link back. So the nofollow tag basically said you won't get any.
It regulated the links across the web and gave them different, levels of different tiers, as it were. But I guess now what they're doing, and UGC stands for user-generated contents, that's mainly going to be links which are associated with forums and blog commenting and all the stuff which historically was spammy, which they can now categorize. Now these updates have been spoken about quite a lot, but I guess the real importance is the implication of what these links mean, both for people that are on the publisher side and both for the SEO and digital marketing industry in itself. Now, I think the first thing that we thought was, historically we've got links from large publications which have a blanket no-follow rule. So, initially I think we all got quite excited that, as of March next year, they're not going to be using no-follow as a directive. They'll be using it more as a hint.
A hint,
So a hint. So Google will pick and choose whether it takes notice and passes page rank from that link to your website. Now, I think, from looking at do you think it's going to change much at all?
If I'm honest, we've had a lot of back and forth with this, haven't we? I think ultimately, if it suddenly switched all these off, it would crash the web. You're still going to have a lot of publishers that will leave no-follow tags in display advertising, if they're running affiliate sites with links like that. So I don't think the no-follow tag is going to become completely redundant. I think really it aims to give Google a little bit more context around the link that you've dropped in, but ultimately I like to think it would change quite a lot, but I can't see it changing too much, purely because this is how the web's made up now. And you think of how everything would almost come crashing down if suddenly this no-follow tag was switched off.
I think, and obviously it's all speculation because no one really knows. You've got judge, jury and execution at Google. They know, I think, or hope they know. So we've got the UGC link, which obviously can replace forums and commenting, which I think will be relatively easy rolled out. You've got the sponsored content link, which I think, as an SEO, you want to go out there and get good links, and if it's a follow link, perfect. If it's a no follow link, fine. If it's in a decent publication, drives referral traffic, that's fine. From a sponsored link perspective, if people going out there and still buying links and paying for links, and they negotiate a do follow link in the process of doing that anyway. So if publications that currently charge people for links are looking to then go out and say there's going to be a sponsored link because that's what Google says, then these people currently aren't playing by the guidelines necessarily, because obviously they're receiving payment for links. So I don't think introducing a sponsored thing is going to impact the way in which people try and monetize their blogs in a way in that they charge for links.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I think with these these sort of attributes, you do have to be a bit careful. In turn, the other side of the coin, to what you were saying, Ben, was that we could have a publisher in which we pitch in a campaign or whatever, they want to reference it, but they might still link it as sponsorship. Now, sponsorship and UGC at the moment are being treated in essence as no follows. They're not going to pass any page ranks. So I think it does tread a very almost like dangerous line, in the sense of if you have a publisher or a blogger from a non-SEO background, is going to feel more inclined to either misuse these tags. So, you give a blogger or a publisher a press release and they mark it as UGC, when technically that wouldn't even be right in the eyes of Google. And I think it kind of gives them... It's almost like if it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing. And really how I kind of see this is Google can better understand the link, but really it's asking for us to put in more work for essentially little benefit from the user side. That makes sense.
I think they'll be able to pass more information through to Google and their database and sort of help them categorize sites. Do you think there'll be a sort of ratio aspect? Obviously, everyone talks about things like anchor text ratios and everything. Do you reckon there'll be an ideal ratio that people will sort of come out and try and hack and say, you need 20% sponsored links, you need 20% GCC or UGC?
I don't know. I think the thing is with sponsorship, when you actually break down these two items, essentially no follows are supposed to be used in all cases anyway. So essentially what this is doing is basically saying, instead of using a no follow on your display ad that you're running or a no follow on your spatial forum comment space, put a UGC or a sponsorship.
Yeah, I think that's quite easy to automate and sort of roll out. But with UGC, but with sponsored content, it'll be interesting to see how many sponsored tags are rolled out by people that obviously not ones that are being manipulated, because they obviously won't roll those out because otherwise the SEO is not paying for something in their mind. But the way we build links, I guess hopefully it will make big publications realise that they can give us follow links, or if a no follow link does maybe act as a hint rather than a definite a
directive.
A directive. I think that would be good for us as well. But ultimately, like I think we've spoken about, I don't think it's going to make any difference from our perspective. And
I mean,
campaigns you run.
No, exactly, and I think there's been. We speak a lot on the podcast that obviously we set ourselves link targets, but really, the link is kind of the additional benefit to whatever we create. You want to create something newsworthy, something that readers want to read, click and enjoy, etc. And I think really, I've read some suggestions about this, that it's to stop these large publications. We talk about it, the Daily Express, right, from blanket no following all links and actually allowing Google to almost leverage their resource to kind of say, actually, this link is worth passing some form of page rank. And the reason I've seen actually across a few accounts on Twitter was so that it's more fair. Now, ultimately, I don't know if Google is necessarily in the fairness game from a link perspective. I think all it is trying to do is better understand with the whole web makeup, what percentage of links are now sponsorship, what percentage are user generated content, what percentage don't have a no follow, so are in turn to do follow, so that they can better understand the makeup of the web and the sites that they're crawling. As I referred to, I think no follows rolled out in 2005 when it was literally a black or white. It's either has a no follow tag or it doesn't have a no follow tag. And I think content, especially in websites, have evolved so much where now forum spamming doesn't work, so people try and pay for links, they pay for link schemes, they're trying to use roundabout ways to get these links in place, and Google just wants to understand what fraction of those links make up the web, personally.
Okay, so to summarise, we shouldn't really worry about this at all.
I think it gives anything that forces people to do more work. I think ultimately people aren't going to do it. I think
not with an immediate, obviously short-term benefit that we know about anyway. So
there's nothing on the user front we can see.
Well, from a publication side, then maybe there could be a benefit if you're absolutely a massive publication at the moment, blank no following everything. There's definitely going to be some implications on potentially all the authority which you were trying to keep in your site anyway, which isn't necessarily best practice.
I'm unsure about that one, but we'll see. It's been suggested.
Yeah, I know. So long story short, I think it's a no news story. Really?
I think by and large, I don't see any real benefit to the user as of right now, so I can't see why a user would go out of their way to make these special amendments that's only really going to benefit Google. But and then again, as we said at the start, this sort of stuff can be quite dangerous, dangerous loose term used, but for publishers that kind of say, right, all our links are now sponsorship or UGC, that could affect hundreds of thousands of sites. So, as mostly with Google, I'm sure there'll be more to this story as things develop.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be backdating it, or they could go and backdate it, but I think it's always about the process moving forward, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess, usually this sort of stuff follows an algorithm update, so... I guess we'll have people with more resource than us that will test this stuff, and then I'm sure things will unwind.
We'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah,
nice
for
one.
Sure. Cool.
Thanks for listening, guys, and hear from us soon. Cheers.
Leave a comment if
you want to.
If you have any kind of thoughts or concerns around this.
Cool. Nice one. Thank you.